Hi there, welcome back to the Python Mastery Crash Course for Beginners. I'm Gorret. So in the previous session, we had an introduction to the Python syntax where we looked at how to work with comments, keywords, Python variables, the rules for naming variables, and variable naming conventions like the snake case, the camel case, and the Pascal case. So this session is going to be a continuation of variables where we are going to look at the variable scopes. So fire up your favorite editor and let's dive right in. Previously, we looked at variables as containers for storing data. So these variables always have a variable scope, and the variable scope is more like the accessibility level of a variable within our program or within a program. So there are two types of variable scopes, and that is the global scope and the local scope. So with the global scope, we work with global variables, and with the local scope, we work with local variables. So global variables are declared outside of any function and can be accessed throughout your entire program. And local variables, on the other hand, are declared inside a function and can only be accessed within that function. So let's see this in action. So within the basics folder, I went ahead and created a new file called variable scopes, and within this file we are going to go ahead and create a global variable by declaring it and assigning it a value. So the variable name is going to be storing a student name, and you can actually work with any naming convention. So on my side, I'm going to use the snake case naming convention. So student name, then assign it a value of the student name. So this can be this. You can actually work with your own name. And I'll go ahead and work with an inline comment and comment this out as a global variable. So for now, we are going to print the student name. And how we access the value of a variable is by accessing the variable name. So I'll go ahead and run this file. You can pretty see that the student name has been printed in the terminal, but also you can always run the file by typing Python, then the name of the file, and the easiest way to make sure that you're not getting any issues with the file name is by trying to rename it, but instead of renaming it, you highlight, you copy the characters, then press enter and paste them here. So when I press enter, the name is outputted as Gorret. So now let's look at local variables so that we can see the difference with the global variables. So since local variables are declared inside a function, we first of all have to create a function, and within the function body we are going to go ahead and declare the local variable. So I'm pretty sure that if you're a beginner, you might not be conversant with functions, but the way we work with functions is that you first of all access the def keyword, and this is a short form for define. So we define the function, then we follow it up with the function name. For example, we are going to work with a function that prints the student details. So we pass in the function name, student details. Then the syntax is that after the function name, we precede it with the parentheses and then a semicolon. So having done that, we go ahead and pass in the function body. So the function body always consists of the statement that the function is going to use to perform its task. So for example, if the function was going to print the student details, then that means that we have to pass in statements that enable us to get the student details. And for now, we are going to keep it precise in a way that we are just going to print the student name, if any. And still with the syntax, we can always pass in parameters, if any. So for now, we are going to work with this function in a way that we are not working with any parameters. So back to the local variables, we are going to declare a local variable inside our function body. So Python works with indentation, whereby if we want to declare the local variable name as age, for example, the student age, or we can still be consistent and call this student age, then assign it a value of 21. The syntax here is valid, but there would be cases whereby the student age variable starts from the first line as the function definition. So you always get indentation errors, as you can pretty see this expected indented block for the student age variable. So you always have to ensure that the local variables are well indented within the function body. So I'll move this here, or it can actually be here, and then try to move this print statement so it's all the same. So all in all, you have to ensure that the indentation is consistent all through the function body. So you would be wondering, so what is the function body? So the function body is this block where we define the variables and the statements that the function is going to use to perform its task. So for now, I'm not going to dwell so much into the syntax of a function. Let's focus on the local variable. So this function student details is going to go ahead and print the details of the student, whereby we are going to print the student name and the student age. So we are going to work with a string formatter, and with a string formatter we are also going to look at this furthermore while working with string data types. So for now, we are going to access the student name by opening braces and then passing in the student name variable, then also pass in the student age, and we shall go ahead and print these details. So whenever you define a function and you want it to perform a particular task, you have to call the function. So I'm going to comment this as calling the function, and the way we call a function is by accessing the function name, then precede it with the parentheses and pass in parameters if any. And for now we do not have any parameters within our function, so this is going to be empty. And having done that, we can now go ahead and run the file. So when I run the file, we are okay. So for now, I think we can first of all comment this out so that we focus on the output of this function. I think I will have to run this again. Okay, first of all, clear it up and try to run it. So now our function is printing the student name, which is Gorret Golden, and then the age. Do not mind the age anyway. So you can pretty see that the student age that has been defined within this function is accessible in a way that it has been printed, and same applies to the student name. Now, with a global variable, we can still access it just after the function call on line maybe 24 or 22, as long as it's below this. Actually, anywhere, it doesn't matter. So let's try to print the global variable once again, and this is going to be the student name. I'll run this, and you can pretty see that the name has still been printed. So how about if you go ahead and print the student age outside of the function definition, and you know that the student age has been defined this way, so this is going to be student age. Before we even run the file, we're already getting a warning. So a warning is whenever you have, it can be a function or a variable whereby it's underlined with a style in yellow. So when I try to hover, we are getting student age is not defined. This is because this variable is local, meaning that it's only accessed within the function definition or the function body. So let's try to run this up and see whether the age can be printed or it can be accessed. So when I try to run this, we are getting age is not defined. Did you mean student's name? And now we know the reason why, because the age variable cannot be accessed outside of the function definition. So I'll go ahead and comment this out. So this cuts across for all local variables. For example, if you had more than one local variable within the function, like maybe the student program, and then the student program is going to be assigned to computer science, for example. Now, if you still try to print or to access computer science elsewhere by printing it, this is going to be student program. It's going to be the same case, that the student program cannot be accessed or it's not defined. So local variables can only be accessed within the function definition or the function body. So take note of that. So I'm just going to go ahead and update this. So after the student age, we can pass in the student program. You can actually see that the student program already exists among the variables that have been defined. So I'm going to go ahead and clear up the terminal, and that is CLS if you're working with the PowerShell terminal for Windows. I'll comment up line 25 and rerun this so that we print the details of the student, whereby we're only printing the student age and the student program to ensure that the local variables are accessed. So I'm keeping in place line 22 because we have to ensure that the function is called. Otherwise, if I first of all comment line 22 and rerun the file, you can see that we are not getting any output in our terminal. So you always have to ensure that if you're working with a function, the function must be called. So I'll rerun this up. So when I run the file, we are getting the output whereby we are having the student age and then the student program. Now you can also modify the value of a global variable within a function. For example, let's try to modify the student name. So we are going to change the student name to a different value from maybe Gorret Golden to maybe Joanne Mary or any other name. It doesn't matter as long as the value is different. So the way we modify global variables is by using the global keyword. So you first of all access the variable through the global keyword and then the variable name. So global student, then we go ahead and assign the student name a different value. So we can just say Mary Joanne, and this time around within the print statement you go ahead and pass in the student name. Then we run the file. So when we run the file, you can pretty see that we are getting the output as Mary Joanne for the student name, then the age and the student program. So how about if we uncomment line 28 that was printing the global variable name, which is Gorret Golden. So I'm going to run this up very fast. So you can now see that the global variable has been updated to Mary Joanne.